The story of Sylvester Stallone is one of the most inspiring tales in the history of cinema today. He is known globally as a massive action star who redefined the genre through his grit and determination. However, his path to glory was paved with immense suffering and repeated failures that would have broken most people long ago. This video explores the life of a man who fought his way from the cold streets of New York to the very top of Hollywood fame. The trauma began at the very moment of his birth in 1946 due to a medical accident during delivery. A pair of forceps was used incorrectly, causing permanent damage to the nerves in his face. This resulted in a partial paralysis of his lower left side, which gave him his signature slurred speech and drooping look. As a young boy, he was often teased for his appearance, which created a deep sense of insecurity and social isolation for years. His childhood was marked by a turbulent domestic life as his parents struggled with a very difficult relationship. Stallone often felt like an outsider and found solace in the world of physical fitness and acting. He was frequently expelled from schools and faced constant academic challenges while trying to find his place in society. These early struggles with his identity and self-worth forced him to develop a thick skin and a fierce desire to prove others wrong. When he moved to New York to pursue an acting career, he faced a level of rejection that was nearly unbearable. For years, he was told that he did not have the looks or the voice to be a lead actor in the industry. He lived in extreme poverty, often sleeping in bus stations or cheap hotels while working odd jobs just to survive. The constant hunger and lack of stability were a daily trauma that tested his resolve to never give up on his artistic dreams. One of the most heartbreaking moments of his life occurred when he was at his absolute lowest point financially. He was so broke that he could no longer afford to feed his beloved dog named Butkus and had to sell him for $50. Stallone has often spoken about the intense pain of that day and the deep sense of betrayal he felt toward his loyal companion. This specific trauma became a powerful motivation for him to change his circumstances forever. The turning point came when he watched a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner in 1975. Seeing the underdog withstand incredible punishment inspired him to write the script for Rocky in a sudden burst of creativity. He saw the character as a reflection of his own life, as a man who was constantly beaten down but always managed to stand up again. He finished the entire screenplay in just 3 days while living in a tiny apartment. Although studios wanted to buy his script for a large sum of money, they refused to let him play the leading role. Despite being nearly homeless, Stallone turned down the offers because he knew that this was his one and only shot. He stood his ground with incredible courage until the producers finally agreed to let him star as the underdog boxer. This gamble was a monumental risk that could have left him with nothing, but he believed in his own vision. Rocky became a global phenomenon and won the Oscar for Best Picture, making Stallone an overnight superstar. The success of the film allowed him to buy back his dog, Butkus, and finally achieve the stability he had craved since childhood. However, with fame came a new set of pressures and the fear of being a one-hit wonder in a competitive industry. He had to work even harder to maintain his position while dealing with the intense scrutiny of the media. Throughout his career, Stallone has endured a massive amount of physical trauma while performing his own stunts. During the filming of Rocky IV, he asked Dolph Lundgren to hit him for real to make the scene look more authentic. The resulting blow was so powerful that it slammed his heart against his ribs, causing it to swell dangerously. He spent several days in intensive care, hovering between life and death because of his dedication to the movie. The role of John Rambo brought him even more success, but it also came with a heavy psychological and physical toll. He broke several ribs while jumping through trees and suffered multiple injuries that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Stallone became a symbol of the ultimate action hero, but the reality was a man who was constantly in pain. He pushed his body far beyond its natural limits to give the audience a truly visceral and real experience. His personal life was also marked by a complex and often painful relationship with his father, Frank Stallone. There was a constant competitive tension between them that created a deep emotional rift for many decades. Stallone often felt that he was living under the shadow of his father's expectations and sought his approval through his professional achievements. The trauma of this strained bond influenced the themes of family and fatherhood in many films. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of his life was the sudden and heartbreaking death of his son Sage in 2012. This loss was a devastating blow that no amount of fame or wealth could ever heal for the grieving father. Stallone has described this period as a dark time of immense sorrow that forced him to reevaluate everything he knew about life. The pain of losing a child is a trauma that remains a quiet part of his existence behind the scenes. In addition to emotional losses, he has faced several health crises that required major surgeries over the years. He has had countless operations on his back, neck, and shoulders due to the brutal nature of his action roles. Each recovery was a long and painful process that tested his mental strength as he aged in front of the camera. Despite the physical limitations, he continued to reinvent himself and find new ways to connect with his loyal audience. The late 90s and early 2000s were a period of professional struggle as his films began to perform poorly at the box office. He faced the trauma of being cast aside by an industry that he had helped to build into a global powerhouse. Many critics believed that his career was over and that he was no longer relevant in a changing cinematic landscape. This rejection echoed the early days of his career and fueled a new desire for a comeback. Stallone proved the doubters wrong once again by returning to his most iconic characters in Rocky Balboa and Creed. These films showed a more vulnerable and aging side of the actor that resonated deeply with a whole new generation. He received a standing ovation and an Oscar nomination for his performance in Creed, proving that he was still a formidable force. This resurgence was a victory over the passage of time and the harsh nature of show business. His creation of the Expendables franchise was another bold move that brought together the legends of action cinema. While filming these movies, he suffered even more serious injuries, including a broken neck that required a metal plate. He seems to thrive on the challenge of physical pain and uses it as fuel for his creative process. His resilience is not just a character trait, but a fundamental part of how he survives in a very difficult world. Beyond the muscles and the action, Stallone is a deeply creative soul who finds peace in painting and writing. He uses art as a form of therapy to process the many traumas and losses he has experienced throughout his long journey. His paintings often reflect the same themes of struggle and triumph found in his movies, showing a consistent artistic vision. This private world offers him a sanctuary away from the noise and pressure of his public persona. He often reflects on the fact that his greatest successes came directly out of his deepest failures and moments of despair. He believes that the hardships of his early life were necessary to build the character required for the heights of stardom. Stallone is a man who turned his facial paralysis and his poverty into his greatest strengths as an actor. He has lived a life of extreme highs and lows that few people could ever truly understand or endure. Today, he stands as a living legend who has inspired millions to never give up on their own personal battles. His story is a powerful reminder that it is not about how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. This philosophy is the core of his legacy and the message he continues to share with the world. He has faced physical and emotional trauma with a grace that has made him a hero both on and off the silver screen today. In conclusion, the life of Sylvester Stallone is a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome any obstacle. From a traumatic birth to the loss of a child, he has navigated a path filled with pain and ultimate glory. He remains a symbol of hope for anyone who feels like an underdog in their own life journey. His career is a long and epic movie of its own, where the hero always finds a way to win, even when the odds are stacked against him.